Most people think of a predator as someone in a dark alley, a figure with a knife or a shadow in the woods. But in 1976, the residents of Circleville, Ohio, discovered a much more patient kind of monster. A monster that lived inside a Nasser 10 envelope. Imagine opening your mail to find your deepest, most shameful secret written in a jagged, blocky script. No return address, no signature. Just the cold realization that someone has been watching your house. Someone knows when you leave, when you sleep, and who you're talking to. "I know where you live," the letter whispered. "I've been observing your house. I know you have children." This wasn't just gossip. It was a declaration of war. By the time the writer was finished, a man would be dead, a family would be shattered, and a town would be left wondering if the person sitting next to them at the diner was a neighbor or a ghost. Mary Gillespie was a typical mother of two and a school bus driver. Her life was quiet until the spring of 1976. The first letter didn't just accuse her of an affair with the school superintendent, Gordon Massey. It demanded she end it. It was a moral vigilante. But the writer was playing a long game. When Mary didn't respond, the letters began arriving for her husband, Ron. The writer was trying to burn the house down from the inside out. Soon, the Circleville writer became a plague. Hundreds of letters began flooding the town. The postmarks were always from Columbus, but the details were hyper-local. They knew who was cheating on their taxes, who was drinking in secret, and who was lying to their spouse. The town's social fabric began to tear. Neighbors who had been friends for decades stopped speaking. Everyone became a detective, and everyone became a suspect. The writer wasn't just a person. It was the personification of the town's collective guilt. August 19, 1977. A date etched into the dark history of Pickaway County. Ron Gillespie, a man pushed to his breaking point by a year of psychological torture, received a phone call. We don't know what was said, but we know Ron's reaction. He grabbed his .22 caliber revolver, told his daughter he was going to confront the writer, and roared out of the driveway in his pickup truck. Minutes later, he was dead. His truck was found smashed against a tree on a curve he had driven 1,000 times. But the crime scene was a riddle. His gun had been fired once. The toxicology report claimed his blood alcohol was 0.5%, twice the legal limit. But Ron wasn't a drinker. His family was adamant. Ron was sober when he left that house. So why did he fire his gun? Was he being chased? Did he see the writer standing in the middle of the road? The sheriff ruled it an accident, but the letters the next day mocked Ron's death, calling it justice. The writer was still out there, and now they had a body count. For 5 years, the letters continued. Then, in 1983, the writer transitioned from ink to murder. Mary Gillespie was driving her bus route when she saw a large, obscene sign about her daughter tacked to a fence. Infuriated, she stepped out to pull it down. But she felt a tug, a string, attached to a wooden box. Inside was a loaded .25 caliber pistol aimed at her heart. The only thing that saved Mary Gillespie's life was a mechanical failure. The gun had jammed. The sheriff's department managed to trace the gun's serial number. It belonged to Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law, who was currently in the middle of a messy divorce with Ron's sister. Paul claimed the gun had been stolen. He even had an alibi for the day the trap was set. But the evidence was too perfect. A handwriting expert claimed Paul's writing matched the letters. In a trial that gripped the state, Paul Freshour was sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. The ghost finally had a face. This is where the story shifts from a crime thriller to a paranormal impossibility. Paul Freshour was sent to the Lima State Hospital for the criminally insane. He was placed in solitary confinement. He was stripped of pens, paper, and any contact with the outside world. And yet, the letters kept coming. Thousands of them. They were postmarked from Columbus. They contained secrets about the prison guards that Paul couldn't possibly have known. One letter was even sent to Paul himself, mocking his imprisonment. The prison warden, a man with no stake in the case, eventually became Paul's biggest advocate. He testified that there was absolutely no way Paul was sending these letters. He was under 24-hour watch. Even if he could write them, how was he getting them to Columbus to be postmarked? The sheriff ignored him. The governor ignored him. Paul Freshour served 10 years for a crime that the real writer was still committing every single week. Fast forward to 2024. New technology and new eyes have revisited the case. Modern handwriting experts, using digital analysis, have pointed away from Paul. Instead, they've looked at Karen Sue Freshour, Paul's ex-wife. She was the one who found the gun's holster. She was the one who benefited most from Paul's removal. But there's a darker theory, the collective theory, that the letters were a weapon used by a group of high-ranking town officials to keep everyone in line. If you knew everyone's secrets, you didn't need a gun to control the town. You just needed a stamp. In 1994, Unsolved Mysteries arrived in town to film. They received a threat. Forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come here, you will pay. The crew filmed anyway, and the letters stopped shortly after. Paul was paroled, but his life was over. He died in 2012, still maintaining that he was the fall guy for a shadow that never left the town. The Phantom of Circleville proved that a secret is a slow-acting poison. It didn't matter if Paul Freshour was the writer, or if it was his wife, or a secret cabal of town leaders. The result was the same, a community paralyzed by fear. Even today, if you walk the streets of Circleville, people are hesitant to talk about the letters. The ghost may be dead, but the silence remains. We live in an age of digital surveillance, but the Circleville writer showed us that a piece of paper can be just as invasive as any algorithm. If you received a letter tomorrow that knew your darkest secret, what would you do? Let us know in the comments. And if you're brave enough to follow us into the next mystery, hit subscribe. Until next time.